report that that Repteles did on the rates.
Yeah.
It was really provided for you guys, ahead of today's meeting.
So we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it in the
I just
presentation.
didn't see
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other additions or corrections to the minutes? I have a motion to approve them as written.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minute, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by same sign. Thank you. Okay, I have one citizen that would like to speak to us. Julie Bivens.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I know I've spoken a few times now. I think I just have 3 questions today that I'm hoping to get clarification on. I really wish I could have come to the open house, but I wasn't able to make it. So I know this is a little clunkier way of communicating, but I'm also going to provide my written questions in hopes that they can maybe be answered. Okay. So I was wondering if you all could clarify, so I don't know, well, let me just introduce myself. I guess you already said, I'm Julie Bivens, I'm a Roanoke City resident. And I'm here about the Google data center. I've got some questions about that. So I was wondering if you all could clarify the new water source date. I feel like there's been like several different things thrown out there, several different dates. And so that's a big question in my head still. You know, I know that you have said, you've known for a while that we need a new water source no matter what by 2060. And with Google's water use of 2 million to 8 million a day, whenever that starts, you know, that's gonna move up that date. So I'm wondering if we can get some clarification on that. Last month in Botetourt County's Board of Supervisors meeting, I think it was their attorney, Mr. Lockaby, who was presenting on their pro rata plan. He talked about that a new source is gonna be needed now by the 2030s. There's also a graph in one of your reports, and I apologize, I don't have the name of that report with me, but it is the public water projected surplus deficit graph from 2006 to 2060. And that also kind of shows on that graph that a new water source is going to be needed by the 2030s, it looks like. But then I know that there's been other statements recently on the news that the new water source is going to be needed by 2030. So maybe that doesn't sound like a huge difference, but if it takes 15 to 20 years to do this source, that feels significant. So I was wondering if we could get some clarification on that. I was also wondering if you could provide more information on the drought contingency plan specifically for Google. You know, I know on your website, it says Google will be subject to the authority's drought contingency plan and general business rules and regulations, the same as any other customer of the authority. But of course, Google is not any other customer. They're, you know, 30 times, they're using 30 times greater than, more water than the top single user now. So, because it is so much more, what does that look like for them? Can we, like, I don't know how specifics been talked about there. Can we get some of that information? You know, what happens if we're in a drought at the hottest time of the year when they're gonna need all of their water, you know, that they're allowed to have access to that day? That just sounds like a potential disaster. So, that would be helpful. And then the third thing is, I think I also read that it's, you know, again, you've known about the new, needing a new water supply by 2060 since 2003. So if that's the case, you know, that's like over 20 years ago, have funding options been looked into for this already? Like, what was the plan for that? Are we in this position where, like, if we don't use Google's money to pay for that, then it's a problem? Or like, how did we get there? So, so it'd be helpful to have that information. And, you know, if there wasn't a plan, why was that the case? If there was a plan, like, what was that, or where's that money going to now? So yeah, anyways, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Next from Executive Director.
All right. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. Again, I'm going to try to keep this short because we do have quite a lot of information to cover on our budget presentation. First, want to start out and talk about a few legislative things that are not in your report. I mentioned last month that there were two bills pending with regard to regulation of PFAS compounds. One in biosolids and one by our industrial customers, or by industrial customers, not necessarily ours. The biosolids bill was amended quite a bit. There was a conference committee and a lot of discussion about it, and it's come out in a form. And I will say both of these bills have passed the General Assembly, but have not been signed by the governor. So there's still potential that they could be amended or not signed by the governor, or potentially the General Assembly could override the governor's veto of these. But right now it looks like for the biosolids bill, we'll have to start doing monthly PFAS testing in January of 2027. We've already started that now to get a better database. And then by July of 2027, a three-tier system will go into place. If you're over a certain concentration of PFOA or PFOS, you would not be able to land apply. If you're if you're in the second tier, you would be limited to the amount you can land apply. And if you're underneath if you're in the bottom third tier, you would be able to land apply as we do today. So that is kind of the compromise, I guess, that was worked out between the patrons who one wanted a complete ban of land application of biosolids, and another who was working to make the program a little more functional for farmers. So it was kind of on either end, and they've compromised in the middle here. So there's also, again, a bill that has been passed, and unfortunately I do not have the number for you for that one, but that would require us to tell our industrial customers that they have to do a sampling of their wastewater for PFAS compounds and report to us if they know that they were using these compounds in their manufacturing process. So, a lot of times industrial customers may buy products and not necessarily know that might be there, and it shows up in their wastewater. We've done some sampling there. We don't really see that's an issue for any of our industrial customers, but that legislation did, again, pass it in the House, will likely go into effect July 1, and we'll require our pretreatment program. We'll have to modify our program to send out some information. And then they have to report to both us and DEQ. And DEQ actually is charged with whether or not additional actions are necessary with regard there. There's actually no limits. It's really just a monitoring type bill. So, so those are both likely to pass, likely to be signed by the governor. Again, with regard to the report, on page 1, I want to point out Sarah Baumgartner. She has been selected as the National AWWA 2026 for the Communication Award as the outstanding public relations person. This award, the award is very lengthy and talks quite a bit about Sarah's efforts with regard to public outreach, public education, organizational development, and communication within organizations. And there are a couple of categories. Sarah won in the 25,000 connections or more, which is the highest category. And very proud of her. Essentially, she is the water utility public relations person of the year. So it's a good. I don't know if you have any. So we got a speech.
It's a team effort.
Again, I want to thank the board members who were able to attend our open house on March 10th. We had citizens there. I think they learned a lot, and we had, more importantly, an opportunity to have our employees there and show off a lot of things we do. It wasn't just about this water supply issue. We talked about all the kind of things we do with the citizens that were there. So, really a good event, positive, and I think the people that attended learned quite a bit. So, again, for the 3 board members that attended, thank you. Let's see, moving on in the report, I just want to point out on page 2, EC Pace, we talked about a little bit this last time, but EC Pace did help us quite a bit with a water main leak on the Brandon Avenue Bridge over 581, kind of in the Towers area. So just a synopsis of that for you. We've got quite a lot of information this month on our customer payments, aid to customers and our Authority Cares program. Disconnect numbers driven down to the zip code level. We'll actually talk a lot about that in our budget presentation. So, but we wanted to get that information memorialized in the monthly report as well. On page 6, want to highlight that we've been getting some rain recently, and the Weather Service announced last week that the La Nina effect that has been in place since really middle of last year, it seems to be waning. We're going to likely flip to an El Nino event. So again, for the Mid-Atlantic, La Ninas represent typically drought conditions. So this is kind of good news from that standpoint. We go into an El Nino event that typically brings more rain to the Mid-Atlantic, and the Weather Service's charts are showing actually significantly above average chance for precipitation in May through September. In fact, Scott and I are a little concerned because there's indications there's a high percentage that this might be what's called a strong El Nino event, which in the past is actually resulted in flooding issues for the Roanoke Valley. So we're probably going to go from dry conditions to maybe overly wet. So that's good from a water supply standpoint. We should be able to top off the reservoirs, but it does cause some issues for both the localities with regard to flooding, stormwater, and of course the wastewater system. So we're hoping maybe that's brings rain, but maybe it's a little moderate. Just want to point out that the cove, we put 3.5 feet in the cove since the end of January. Today we're standing at 9.1 feet. It was 12.6, so we're at almost 78% of capacity there. And we've really done well at Spring Hollow. Spring Hollow's at 11.3 feet, and that represents 85.6% of capacity. Of course, Spring Hollow is filled from the Roanoke River, and it's a larger watershed, so it's easier to pump out of the river there to Spring Hollow. So starting to see the typical springtime filling of the reservoirs like we do every year. So coming out of the dry part of the year, going into the wet. So to Ms. Levin's questions, I did want to make one comment regarding the drought plan. We've had the same drought plan for many years. It was developed early in our existence, and it is triggered on levels in the Carbon Scope Reservoir. Typically, you have to get down at least 15 to 18 feet before we start triggering those, because again, we have the reservoirs are quite big. We have lots of storage. But that plan was developed years ago, and certainly well before data centers came about. So I do think it's a valid question to ask, and we've been talking already internally about modifying that plan. Sometime in the next 6 months. Didn't want to make sure we're going to get out of a drought before we change the drought plan. But I think it's valid that we do have a large user that was not envisioned when that plan was put in place. So
Mike?
Yeah.
Now, our contract says that they have to adhere to that plan. Now, what if it's changed post-contract? Are they adhering to the new plan, or are they doing, and so?
latest edition. Yeah.
So it's the latest edition, so we're able to make those amendments, and it trails back to the contract?
It does.
Okay, thank you.
So let's see, moving on. At page 8, in the middle of the page, you can see there's an aerial photo of Beaver Dam Creek Dam. We've been working on this for about 18 months now. Scheduled for substantial completion and a walkthrough this month. Work has gone really well out there. Again, we've been kind of keeping that reservoir a little bit low to do the work. We currently don't use water from Beaver Dam and Falling Creek anyway. We just don't need it right now. But we are finishing up that work. And so one thing I thought about was, if you guys are interested, maybe even in conjunction with the May meeting. I think we'll have to be in this room for the April meeting because we'll be talking our capital budget. But I was wondering at May meeting if we might want to do a little bit of field trip out there so you guys can see the dam. Tom, who's been managing it for us, works for Scott, says hopefully it'll be dried up by then. It's really a mud pit out there right now, but I think it'd be pretty interesting for you guys to see the finished product out there. We actually also could combine it. We're about the same time we're going to be finished with the Hollins pump station that we've talked about a couple of times in the last couple of years. That project is also finishing up at the same time, so we might be able to arrange some kind of trip if you guys are interested. So I'll follow up with Mike and with the chair, and we can get Gail to send out some possible times. Again, maybe we'll try to do it the same day as our May meeting. So if you guys would like to do that.
Would you envision us going out there and then busing back here to have?
Or maybe go to the cabin. Maybe go to the cabin. Like we could go to the dam, go by the pump station, and then just run up to the cabin and finish the meeting up there. So Scott says our forestry management plan is the first phase of that is done, and we'll actually ready to do an update by the May meeting as well. So it might all kind of dovetail nicely together.
Just make sure we make the accommodations, because I know it's still an open meeting.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll have to think through those logistics a little bit.
And Wi-Fi. Make sure
We have solved the Wi-Fi at the cabin. We have a solution to that. So, yeah. On page 10 or page 9, I'm sorry. Just want to point out that the boardroom renovations going on downstairs are on track. We will be in that room for our June meeting. So, yeah. So, looking forward to that. It looks good down there. So, and then finally, Mr. Chairman, on page 13, there's a picture of a panel discussion at the Virginia Utility Management Conference. That's it's a little hard to tell from the quality of the picture, but that's Tesha Okioga, our Director of Engineering, in the center there. She was a presenter at that conference. So congratulations to Tesha. She did a great job on her paper there. And since Neil's here, I also want to single out Neil. Neil has been seizing the opportunity to talk to the Yokohama folks. Unfortunately, I think y'all have heard Yokohama is closing in Salem. They've had a couple of job fairs, so we've had people over there hoping to recruit new employees from Yokohama. So, and Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll be quiet, and so we can move on to the rest of the agenda. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just got a couple. The open house, I think I saw them, and there was just a quick update, but there was Haven was there.
Yeah.
That there are engineers that presented some plans. And just for my benefit, I don't remember them coming and presenting before us. And, would it be a good idea to at least get that? I know maybe 3 colleagues were there, but
Right.
It's something that can get before us as well.
Yeah, so Hazen is our consultant. We actually have 2 of our consultants there. Representative of WRA was there as well, but Hazen was there to present what they're working on, the initial screening of the water supply plan, and they were really talking about how they're going about that. So we don't really have results of that plan. It was more about how we might, how we're going about that and what we're looking at and things like that.
Sure.
But definitely that's, I think we'll actually have a draft report available for you by the July meeting. So
Great, thank you. And
Yes.
the second question is, I saw that the chamber is hosting a data center and bringing Google.
It is.
Are we involved in that at all?
We are. We're going to be, I think it's a panel type discussion. And we will, it's either going to be myself or possibly Will. I don't think we're still trying to work it out with the chamber to talk about water supply issues at that event.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And that's April 14th. So if you get the newsletters from the chamber, you probably have seen that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Okay.
The report. They have to report. Yeah, Amy?
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, have the financials for the month of February. Taking a look at the water side, water sales are at 66%. Other operating revenues are at 71%. Operation and maintenance expenses are at 60%, and then net income from operations is at 117%. Taking a look on the sewer side, sewer charges are at 67%, and other operating revenues are at 66%. Just a reminder on some of those revenues, other operating revenues, they lag a month. Operation and maintenance expenses are at 63%, and net income from operations on the sewer side is at 77%. Taking a look at the combined statement, operating revenues are at 68%, operating expenses are at 61%, and net income from operations is at 96%. And then below that, you'll see the cash analysis for the water fund and for the wastewater fund. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Tammy, can we, the contributed capital on the water and the sewer side is way over what was budgeted.
Yes, sir.
Should we be, what is that, the cause of it? And then should we be doing a better job at budgeting that for that?
So part of that is on the ARPA grants that we get from Roanoke County. We have to bill them based on a balance. So we have billed them this year for that, but the capital component of that has already been accounted for. So we're just invoicing them and getting those funds, but the capital has already been.
Essentially payroll tax, totally different, yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's tiny difference, okay, and
And
then,
then,
go ahead.
and then we also received a payment from Helio as well as Baptist County.
And going forward, since ARPA's gone.
Right.
We don't have to worry about.
Right, these were all like one time.
Yeah, I was
one-time items.
just making sure that from a budgeting standpoint, we were not way under, but understand. Thank you.
Any other questions for Angie? Okay. Move on to report from our conference. Jeremy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple items that have been occupying some time since the last meeting. One of those unfortunately has not been fair and water and sewage authority. Although we do continue to get assurances that approval is forthcoming, or at least a response is forthcoming. And Tammy does a great job of pinging our representative of rural development and gets responses, but the responses aren't actually moving the ball forward.
Is that because of the partial shutdown, or is that?
That was a problem once upon a time, but I think this problem predated that shutdown, and I don't think the current one is a problem with it. I think the last government shutdown might have been an issue. I'm sorry.
The last response that we got was that we would hear an answer at the end of this week.
So tomorrow's no way. We have been moving forward with the Bridgewater transaction. The State Corporation Commission is responsible for regulatory review of that transaction because we're acquiring the system from a public, from a private entity. It has to go through SEC approval. As you know, we filed applications and amended our petition. They've continued to ask some questions. It's a very complicated transaction, and you've heard about that over the past several months, about the nature of this multi-party transaction. And I think the SEC staff is really just trying to get their hands around what's going on with the flow of funds. They've asked some accounting questions with regard to the entity that's selling the system. Ultimately, the test at the end of the day is whether the Water Authority's acquisition of the system is going to impair effective service or efficient rates, and it's not. So I'm confident we'll be approved at the end. It's just taking a little time to get across the finish line. We did, at their direction, advertise in the Roanoke Times for public comment on the acquisition of the system, and we had to provide notice to jurisdictions that would be impacted. All of that is done. I think the public comment period runs into April, at which point there'll be a hearing before the SEC. I don't anticipate there'll be much attendance at that hearing, or much participation, and hopefully after that, we'll have an approval.
I will add that Jeremy's done a great job on this because, we've acquired over the years at least 30 systems from homeowner associations and other private individuals. And we have gotten more questions on this one item than I think the all 30 combined. I mean, it's new staff, and again, like Jeremy said, the transaction is quite complex, but
And didn't he inherit it too? Wasn't this already on the list with Sam?
It was, the contracts hadn't been put together, but certainly in the concept had come up and there were discussions had been going on. In fact, I think discussions had gotten to a point and then broken off, if I understood.
this is the one we've tried to
correctly.
buy like 3 times over the last 5 years. And it's there's 5 parties to the agreement, and again, Jeremy's done a great job of working with all of their attorneys. It's just, this is quite complex, but I also think the State Corporation Commission is paying a lot more detail. They were looking at this a lot more in detail than they have in the past, and that seems to be related to some staff changes, maybe more than anything else.
There must be a reason, because to your point about Sam's involvement, I actually use Sam's documents from the other 30 as kind of my template for the documents we submitted. So it's nothing new about the information we've submitted. It's just something about the transaction that has either piqued their interest or new staff or something there. So
Is there a point of return? Like, is there, or are we just gonna continue?
We're almost there. Like,
Yeah.
we can see the finish line. So, yeah. So.
if they say no, then we'll really begin to wonder. I just don't anticipate that happening. When we last met with regard to the FOIA litigation that was ongoing, that was on a Thursday. Much was still in flux. The very next day, if I've got my calendar correct,
Yep.
we did receive the order from the Court of Appeals denying our request for reconsideration. That, you know, we'd asked the court to stay the requirement that the information, the volumetric water information for the Helio contract be disclosed. Court of Appeals disagreed. That was late Friday afternoon. We then, in compliance with all the court orders that were out there, turned that information over late on Monday. We've seen, if I may, we've seen some reporting that the turning over of that information was tied towards an upcoming contempt hearing. We steadfastly maintained that we were not in violation of any court order, and the reason we turned the information over was because the Court of Appeals acted, and once the Court of Appeals acted, we turned it over within a business day. So I just wanted y'all to be, I know you've seen some reporting on that, and I wanted you to know at least the process that Mike and I were going through on that issue. The matter does still continue on appeal, even though the information is now disclosed. It is, you know, it's an issue that, from a legal standpoint, the Court of Appeals will still rule on, just to provide some guidance for parties in the future. Moving on to the next matter, and this is the next system acquisition that's beginning, and Mike has talked about this in prior meetings. So the Idlewood Shores Homeowners Association, and I've started communicating with their council about putting together the agreements. Mike has
We did have a breakthrough. This is the one where the health department originally said they had some money to help with the transition. Then they said they couldn't help fund that, so we were gonna essentially finance that through an assessment on the homeowners' bills. The homeowner association had some concern with that because they thought that was gonna be too high on their bills. The health department this week, though, came back and said, no, we do have money for you. So we might have solved that problem, but so at least the cost that's necessary to transition over our system should hopefully be covered now. But we still do have the same State Corporation Commission transition to go through. So I suspect we'll be operating the system for a while before we get final ownership.
But it will come back to us.
They will, yeah.
that's the point.
Is that for sure? I mean, is that a,
Yeah, the health department said that they actually, they have some ARPA funds that need to be spent before the end of the year. And I guess other projects that they realized they were gonna have leftover money. So after I complained to them quite a bit about the fact that they kind of said they had money and then they didn't, now they have money again. So that will require us to scramble around and get stuff done before the end of the year. So it'll be some work for us.
Do that same day.
Yeah. So,
Two other minor matters, Mr. Chairman, the resolution of the New Hope Church claim. We're just finishing up the documents on that, a little work. Thank you to Mike and Tesha and Aaron Shear for helping on that over the last week or so. And then the Wallace Avenue acquiring a small parcel in the city. That's actually going to close tomorrow, so that will be concluded.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any
Happy-
questions, comments for Jeremy? Thank you. All right. Report on committees, Carter, I think you want.
The compensation committee met prior to this meeting. And a couple things to report. We had been talking about some sick leave and some additional FMLA type stuff, but we decided to table that because of the legislation that's passed through the State House and it's on the governor's desk now. So we're going to wait to see how all that shakes out before we have any idea what we want to do. And then regarding annual increases, insurance costs and things like that, we're going to defer to Tammy's presentation that's coming right up.
Excellent. I think no other committees have met last time. Okay. All right, great. Budget. And
Sure. So today we'll be talking about expenses, rates, and revenues. At our next board meeting, Mr. Hayward, you'll let me know if I need to speak a little louder. At our next board meeting in April, we will be talking about debt and our capital improvement plan. At our May board meeting, we'll bring the budget back in its entirety for one final review. And then June 18th, we will have the approval of the 27 budget as well as a public hearing for adoption of our rates. So today we're going to talk about personnel. I think I'm going to have to hold this. Personnel, operation and maintenance expenses, affordability and consumption trends, recommendation on our rate changes, and summary of our revenues. So first we'll talk about our expenses. This graph illustrates actual expenses over the last 11 years. And since 2015, expenses have increased at an annualized rate of 5.05% for the water authority. The water fund is at 5.81% and sewer is at 4.32. So this is an annualized chart. And so it actually helps take out the fluctuations and the increases and the decreases.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just point out that 2023, where you start seeing the trend, the slope of the curve changing, that's when the town of Benton came on board. So we added 8.5% to our customer base. And then also, that's coming out of supply chain issues associated with COVID. So inflationary period there, but we were pretty, you can see from 2015 to 2022, we were pretty constant across the board. And then we've had an increase since then. And that's primarily a result of adding all the customers from the town of Benton.
So next we'll go over our personnel and benefits in the budget. So in our current 2026 budget, we have 319 full-time positions. In the budget that we are proposing to add 7 additional employees. In prior board meetings, we have talked about a need for a new water construction crew at our field operations center. So those 4 employees are being budgeted in the 27 budget. And then we also are planning on 3 plant maintenance, and that one of those would be the planner and the other 2 would be a technician.
Again, the plant maintenance is to recognize we've added a lot of small facilities around the system. And we'd also like to, we have some additional, it's really work at our pump stations and storage tanks. It's more field work that I think doesn't maybe necessarily always get the attention that the plant work does. So we do need some more staff there. So I hope you consider that.
So for salaries, we have implemented a 3% merit increase for our employees. That increase is $741,650, which does include FICA. So Roanoke City retirement, we are seeing a slight increase, 21.29 to 22.02. And then for the VRS system, employer contribution is actually decreasing 4.37 to 4.08, as well as our life insurance. It's going from 1.18 to 1.06. Next, we'll take a look at personnel and benefits as it relates to health and dental insurance. In the 27 budget, we are proposing a small increase to our employee health insurance, and that would be 4%. We also are proposing a 10% increase to our dental plans. And we use Mark III as a insurance consultant for us, and they have recommended the industry average suggests that health increase is increasing at 8.5%. So this is our plans. The green is the 500 plan, and the last column on the chart shows the dollar increase that those employees would see monthly in their paycheck, and the blue is actually the high deductible plan.
So just by way of numbers, again, the Key Care 25,500 is a traditional insurance plan. The other one is a high deductible plan, but we have roughly 215 of our employees are in the Key Care, the green plan that you see on the chart. We have 70 employees on the high deductible plan, along with 20 retirees. We do allow retirees to buy our high deductible plan for insurance up until Medicare age, and we have 20 employees there, retirees there. Interestingly, we also have 34 employees who elect not to take coverage. They get coverage through other means. So, but the majority of our employees are still in the Key Care 500 plan. It's again a traditional kind of policy that you would expect for insurance.
Okay, that's a couple questions, just a reminder. I'm sure we've covered this before. One is, does the authority make any contributions to HSA?
We do. When you first start, if you first start your HSA, we'll start you off with $1,500, and then we do a match with the employee moving forward after that. So if the employee puts in, Neil, what's
You do a 3-to-1 match.
3-to-1 match?
Yeah, be careful that we don't over contribute where they.
Yeah, there's a limit to what you can do every year. Yeah.
Okay. And if a significant other has access to insurance through their employer, is there a differential that you ask employees to pay?
We do not. If you want, yeah, we
Got it.
we
Thank
don't, we don't try to do with that one.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Did you do any analysis to see if the increase, 3% merit increase, is it basically zeroed out with the increases in the?
Neil, you want to?
So we look at that each year. So if you're on a payment plan, you're only paying 4% of $600 versus get 3% of your whole salary. So it does take away some, but it's not take away.
And have you benchmarked the employer contribution ratios industry wise?
Yeah, I think we are a little more generous on the family side maybe than.
I would say that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Mark III provides us that information. And we do, again, when we budget, so again, we're budgeting for a 4% increase on the authority share. That 4% is also passed on to the employee there. Right.
Yeah. And I'll
We-
just say, we're looking at this ourselves, we see a lot of variability when we look around with Commonwealth and then some of the local government peers. There's a lot of variability in both the contribution proportions, but also just the rates and the plans actually. So it's sometimes hard to figure out exactly where the center of the market is on that.
I mean, I think what's really important is that you look at total compensation, which is your pay that you take home, your retirement, benefit, your health benefit, what you pay for it, any other benefits that you got. I mean, all of that is compensation. And so it's just different categories of compensation. So it's important to look at all of that together as well. So, and communicate that to
I was gonna say, do we issue something to the employees? I know I get something
Good.
sort of similar.
We have in the past, and so we do that to all employees, and what we do now is we do like a general overlay when we do open enrollment. So we'll just take a John Doe, so they get the salary, this much percent is paid for paid leave, this much is paid through insurance.
Yeah.
And give them a vote.
But not drilled down to the per employee.
We can, yeah, we've done that some years.
It's kind of useful.
Yeah, we haven't done it probably in 3 years, but we have done it in the past. Yeah,
Good practice.
it's a good idea.
And then just if I can follow up, I think this may have been what Valerie was asking, the way I understood the question, because I know an analysis we do is look at our lowest paid full-time employee to see, do they net out any kind of raise? Do they get a pay cut if they keep the same insurance plan? Do they have to switch plans? I think, is that what you were?
Yeah, that's what we typically do.
Yeah, I wasn't sure the answer. That's different than 4% of a number, right? So I don't know if you all look at it.
There's no way, that math, there's no way it would, at these dollar amounts, there's no way to cancel it out.
And
It's impossible.
I was just wondering if
But I think, you also have to be careful because some people choose to get health insurance, some people don't, some people have other options in their household, some don't. So you gotta be careful with those things a little bit too, that you don't have unintended inequity.
That is a question we get quite often. So we actually showed that at the presentation. It will show average salary, if you get this much monthly, how much health insurance will pay.
It's why the total compensation kind of perspective, I think, is really important. It's not easy to put together, but I think it can be helpful.
So next, Chairman and members of the board, we have a health insurance overview. And so what we have in front of you is total paid medical and pharmacy claims. So what's not included in those totals are what we pay for insurance, for stop loss administration, and then also what we pay for vision and dental. As you can see, for fiscal year 2024, general statement 3.7. What we did in fiscal year 2025 was a little bit less, and then you can see what we're doing so far in this fiscal year, all the way up to February. We look at our medical versus pharmacy, we're about 70-30%. And you can see that number is slowly changing as we look at this current fiscal year. When we try to compare this, we're looking at medical and pharmacy. At the bottom, it mentions PM average, and so that's per member per month. And so we're able to look at like a year's worth of data at one monthly figure.
Is this total claims or just the employer paid portion? Does this include the employees,
This is,
co-pays, deductibles?
yes, this is
All
all.
Wow,
Yeah,
congratulations.
we've been pretty stable. Part of it has been, we've had older employees, retiring and, but one thing it's been nice is, and this is not a big dollar amount, but we've been able to bump up our, deductible on our, stop loss coverage a little bit, save a little bit of money there. We've gone up on that a little bit, for catastrophic, secondary coverage, but, we went self-insured, it's 5 years ago now, 4 years ago now.
So I think 4.
Yeah, 4, and, the first year I think we broke even, we were just right there. And then the last couple of years, things have stabilized, we kind of, I think we know what we're doing better. Mark III's been really helpful in making, recommendations to us on the pharmacy and things like that, so.
Healthy employees are a good thing.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Well, you've been working on employee health just in general as well, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's all kinds of things. that you're
Yeah,
doing.
we have these, wellness messages all the time. We do, provide a gym benefit for employees. We, obviously need more people to participate in that, but,
Other slides we also have include membership enrollment. So members, which includes employees and dependents, family members, we have a total of 534. And then employee subscribers, we have 306. So the average age, I would say, of those that are members is 36. And our average age for our employees is actually 43. And then you look at percent gender, our members, I guess you could say 40-60. And then our employees is 70. This graph just shows age groups and how that is stratified across our 65 and above. If you retire from the water pool, once you reach the age of 65, you have to go on Medicare. But if you work for us and you're past the age of 65, you can't get health insurance. This graph talks about medical costs only, but the top 5 health conditions by cost: cancer, We also have health statuses, so that's multiple illnesses, muscular skeletal systems, so bones, muscles, joints, circulatory heart issues, and then also behavior. So we're looking at mental health. So those are broad categories by cost. And then if you look at those that are most common, I guess not a big surprise, but stress, anxiety, depression, hypertension, low back problems, high cholesterol, and then also diabetes. We do have a health status of our members.
It's America.
Yeah. I think serious testing for consumer, come to find out, antidepressants are like one of the number one drugs.
I just told Will, this is exactly what shows up in the wastewater for all 5.
If you look at our status as a membership, you can see, it looks well balanced, but when you compare that to Virginia or even national standard, we could move some of our chronics to healthy, but when you look at our at risk or critical, we're actually doing pretty good. And then this is the last slide. This is looking at pharmacy costs only. So we have listed the 5 top prescription gloves or drugs. Humira, Ozempic, Stelara is the top 3. And what's interesting is if you go across and look at that total, it's only 2.3% of all drugs prescribed and used, but it's almost $500,000, so only like $50,000 shy. And then if
Can you remind me, do you all, allow GLPs for weight management?
we do not, and so like, we can't say people aren't prescribed it for diabetes, but it's not.
Oh, of course,
You would say,
yeah.
somebody went to the doctor and said, I want to try this for that, they would say.
In past years, inflammatory type drugs have been either all of the top 5 or at least 4 of the top 5. That Ozempic at number 2 is something this is the first year we've seen that. And to Neil's point, some of it's for diabetes treatment. We have no doubt doctors are prescribing it for weight loss.
Top pharmacy indications by cost, inflammatory conditions, that can be skin condition, arthritis, what that's used for, diabetes, growth, cancer, migraine headaches, and then by use, hypertension, diabetes, depression, high cholesterol, and then also pain. Any questions?
So moving into our expenses on the water fund, we can see our water quality divisions as well as our customer operation and then administration and engineering. So on the water side, our expenses are increasing $535,161 or 2%. So we can go through a couple of these because the percentage change might be stand out. So Spring Hollow, that's negative 21%. That is a reflection of the GAC changeouts, and in 27, we don't expect any of those.
We finished that first phase of that project to rehab the GAC filters. They're much more efficient now, and we don't expect to change out the carbon as frequently.
So the next one, while the budget is small, the percentage is much bigger, the contract services. On that one, you're just allocating another person to help with our contract services, which on the water side would be Craig and Fincastle. Smith Mountain Lake System, that's the Bedford Regional Water Authority, and we will be seeing an increase on that one as a result of the Bedford Regional Water Authority doing their GAC change-ups.
Yeah, Bedford, this is essentially just a purchased water category that we buy from the Bedford plant, help support the operations there. We've implemented activated carbon at that plant as well. Well, I'd say we've had activated carbon there for a while, but full activated carbon, they traditionally been trying to do a split system where part of the flow went through. Scott had just recommended to him that they just treat the whole thing with activated carbon, and so, but there is a higher cost, $42,000 a year to us to do that. So.
Tim, you might have mentioned this. Why the decrease at Spring Hollow? Was it, yeah,
It's the GAC.
Yeah.
We don't expect to have.
Yeah, we're not expecting as many change outs as we've had in the past, so.
okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that, if you take out that one item.
Right.
So recurring expenses are actually increasing over 4% next year. So I just don't want the reader to look at 2%.
Right, right.
And say, I mean, so in terms of what the inflationary or ongoing operational expenses are, we're actually going up 4.2. I don't know what the other negative numbers are, the community water systems and the water quality administration. If that's the same thing, then we're probably going up about over 5% in recurring expenses. So I just think to point that out for later discussion.
Those are actually just, the other two are reallocation of employees from one division to another, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Taking a look on the sewer side. You can see that the sewer expenses are increasing approximately 1.6 million or 6%. And we can go through a couple of those. On the collection system and metering, that is a result of a contract increase. The biosolids,
Yeah, that's essentially going to cover the additional costs of the monthly testing that we'll have to start doing for PFAS.
the process and facilities maintenance, that 11% includes the 3 new employees. The community wastewater, again, we're reallocating some folks there and spending a little more money on the farm plants. Any other questions on sewer? So our next slide, personnel and benefits are increasing a little over 4%, and that equates to approximately 1.3 million. Operation and maintenance expenses are increasing 3.13%, and that's $834. Sorry, $834,000. And then the total budget for operation and maintenance expenses is increasing 3.63, and that's approximately 2.1% million. Any questions on those expenses?
And again, Tammy is going to continue to refine those over the next 2 months, but.
So next we'll go into our rates. So this slide is just providing some insight on the affordability customer assistance that we offer. In 2025, for home serve and the Authority Cares Assistant, the account balance was $133,382. As of the end of February, that balance was $151,543. So there you see the average that we are collecting in revenue. It has slightly gone down a little bit as the end of February. However, the customer pledges has also kind of decreased as February.
This number of customers, is that households?
Yes, exactly. That's the locations that home service solo policy too.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'll have the next couple of slides. I do want to add something to the Authority Care slide. In the American Water Works Association benchmark study for 2024, there were 115 utilities with combined water and sewer service that participated, and only 23% of them had a financial assistance program similar to what we have. So we are in a very fortunate position to be able to provide this assistance to our customers. The AWWA benchmark looks at affordability for water and sewer charges as a percentage of the median household income. On this slide, we're looking at the water charges as a percentage of the median household income by zip code for all of the 24 zip codes where we provide water service. As you can see, all of our zip codes have a water charge as a percentage of the income less than 1%. The highest is zip code 24016, which is Northwest Roanoke City, which is at 0.85% of their median household income. If we compare zip codes to the AWWA benchmark study, those two zip codes, 2416 and Ferrum, are above the 25th percentile of the AWWA 2024 benchmark study. But that benchmark study is looking at data from 2023, and our numbers here is from 2025.
May I ask a question about Ferrum? What are their rates compared?
So everybody has the same rates. This is looking at the income levels, and it's not median household income. It's actually other census income data by zip code. And Ferrum actually has the lowest income by all the zip codes we have there. So
I didn't know with things not being finalized there, if we're charging.
it's the same rate. Yeah.
Same rates.
Yep.
But if we compare ourselves to the benchmark study, you can see that 8 of our zip codes are actually below the 75th percentile, and another 9 is between the median and the 75th percentile. So 17 of our 24 zip codes are below the median of the AWWA benchmark study. When we look at sewer charges as a percentage of the median household income by zip codes, this includes all 19 zip codes where we provide sewer service. And again, the same zip codes that were above the 25th percentile for water charges is above the median for the 25th percentile of the AWWA benchmark study for 2024. We have one zip code that is above 1% of the median household income, and that is Ferrum, because they have the lowest median household income. On the sewer side, we have 4 zip codes that are below the 75th percentile, and another 7 that is below the median. So a total of 11 of our 19 zip codes are actually below the median of the AWWA benchmark study. For the combined water and sewer costs as a percentage of the median household income, Ferrum does have the highest percentage at 1.85%. The EPA considers water and sewer services unaffordable only when the median household, when the percentage of cost for water and sewer exceeds 3.2% of the median household income. And that is compared for a consumption of 4,000 gallons.
I'm not sure. So, what is the percentage for 24016?
I know it's 0.99%. It's just below the 1%. So if we look at the EPA's threshold, we are well below that threshold with our 1.85%.
So for years, EPA has said they see water at 2%. They would like to, affordability is it's unaffordable above 2% of median household income, and same for sewer, but that's for 5,000 gallons. So we adjusted that down to 3.2 to ratio that for a 4,000 gallon bill. But you can see we're roughly half of the well, I guess Ferrum's a little bit higher than half of the affordability number there. So, but it is the same 4 zip codes that that we see, year in, year out on affordability. Southeast at 24013, 2 zip codes in the northwest part of the city at 016 and 017, and then the Ferrum one. It doesn't have a lot of customers, only a couple hundred customers in that zip code, but it has the lowest income, so it kind of tends to drop the number a little bit.
But it's 151.
Yes, yeah.
There's so much great data. I want to applaud staff. We used to compare us to like Lynchburg and Charlottesville and Northern Virginia and pat ourselves on the back, say we're less than everybody else. And this is really drilling it down the zip code and comparing to our local income. So thank you for presenting it in such a way that is impactful for our community.
The disconnect ratio looks at the number of customers that were disconnected in a service area compared to the total number of customers in that service area. Again, we've broken down our numbers by zip code, and we're listing every zip code that we have a water service in. The table shows the residential customers in each one of those zip codes, the number of customers that were disconnected, and then the disconnect ratio. We always include the map of the Roanoke City area because the highest disconnect ratio are always in those zip codes. We had an exception in 2025 where Boonsmore also made it into that top level of disconnect ratios. Mike mentioned, we have some zip codes that reappear over and over. 24017, Northwest Roanoke City had the highest disconnect ratio, with 1 in 7 customers getting disconnected for non-payment last year. The second highest disconnect ratio was 1 in 8, and 24013, Southeast Roanoke City, falls into that category, as well as 24016, which is parts of Southwest Roanoke City and Northwest Roanoke City.
Can you go back one slide real quick? Just one question about how we're looking at this, and this is just a curiosity about the numbers here. So presumably the median and the 2 percentiles that we have listed in any given area, they're going to be a composite that looks just like this, right? Because every area I've ever been has people at different income levels in different places. So what I don't see on here is you could almost like draw our median, right? Because we have essentially a local number of our own. But I don't say it's not misleading, but it's I assume this pattern would exist in any metro area anywhere in the US. And so the lines are simply an average of a pattern that looks like this from other places, right? So
That's exactly, that's right.
WVWA 2024 benchmark study, so it is from utilities across the nation.
yeah. But what I'm getting at is we're drawing, essentially you draw the benchmark like it's a straight line, but in reality, it's really not, right?
Yeah.
So if you looked at like another metro and you laid it on top of us, if it represented, say, the actual benchmark median, so it's the 50 percentile case, it's going to have a pattern of its own where some customers will be both above and below the line, just as we are. So there's I'm not sure exactly what that means, other than you would have a pattern that looks like that everywhere, probably.
Well, one thing to think about here is on the yellow line there. That is the median for all the people that replied on the survey.
Yeah.
And so, by definition, that means half of them are higher than that, or half are less of their individual.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
that's kind of
We actually have our individual ones later.
Yeah.
If we just, but.
So what I'm getting at is, like, if you looked at a couple of median, the communities that actually were at the median, how do we compare relative to them in terms of like number of customers or people that kind of fall? I know it's going to be 50-50, but in this case, how much matters a lot, right? What kind of pattern do you see at some other typical median communities?
Are you saying to compare our affordability to other affordability medium incomes based off of rates?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, this is kind of like saying the average height of a male in Roanoke, Virginia is X, right? Well, almost everybody is different height than that, right? So but what you would be really concerned about in this case is do we have an unusually large number of folks that, like, where we got the real tall bars, right, which was the concern here. Do we look different than, in other words, it's really like kind of, this is all about wealth concentration, right? Are we abnormal in that? So do we have a particular problem that's unique to us, or do we kind of look generic? So you could look at strike our own line relative to the median, which would be a straight line, right? Because we would have our own straight line if you composite, you bring all this together. Or do we stand out in some negative way, which would drive us to do more things because we might stand out, in a particularly bad way. But it just hit me, though, that none of these lines are actually straight in the real world, because they would all be patterns of bars for any real place.
Yeah.
Right.
And what it doesn't take into account is population numbers.
Yeah.
Like, so I think it would be helpful to see the percentage of our total customers
Right.
within each of the bands.
I think
25%, 50%,
I
75%.
think you can disseminate that from the.
You could do the math.
From the report, that does have the number of customers per zip code and breaks down. But I'll also add that, this is useful because, in the report, it also says that the, percentage of authority cares, are going to the 3 or 4 zip codes that
Mhm.
are having the highest number of disconnections.
You can almost overlay that with
Yeah,
it.
right.
That's a great point too. That's a great way to think.
Yeah,
about it.
because over here, it's really the, like, 1 in 8, that's a lot, right? 1 in 7, like, those are, to me, the more striking records when I look at this.
Agreed.
But again, I don't know this is the only data like this I've ever seen for any location, if you somehow had access to another community's version of this, would it look like? Do we look normal? Do we look unusual? Is this typical? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
so,
sure we will
yeah,
find that.
yeah, we can look at
I
it.
think as Hunter said, this is America.
Yeah.
I do want to point out that, it is not unusual for us to see, the city of Roanoke zip codes in the top disconnect ratio. But Bloomsville, interestingly enough, had 1 in 12 customers disconnected last year, and the year before it was 1 in 25. So not sure what happened. Usually it's not. We talked a little bit about the Authority Cares program, and on this chart, we're showing the 16 zip codes where we had 1.5% or more of the customers disconnected for non-payment. But we're also including that financial assistance that we provided in each one of those zip codes. The chart is organized with the lowest income, median household income zip codes to the left and the highest median household incomes to the right. And you can see that most of the disconnect activity happens in those zip codes on the left with the lower median household income. If we look at 24017, 13.9% of those customers were disconnected for non-payment, but we also provided 7.3% of them with financial assistance from the Authority Cares Fund. You can see in that zip code, over $80,000 of our Authority Cares Fund went to customers in that zip code. That is more than 33% of the total Authority Cares assistance we provided in 2025.
So I think this presentation is telling as maybe an opportunity in 24016 and then maybe 24013 for some education, maybe some flyers to customers in those locations, because obviously 24016, 24017, 24013 are almost adjacent to each other, very similar characteristics, but somehow the word is out in 17 and not in 16. So how do we get the word out?
And I think,
Yeah. We had that problem, that's been I guess the last 3 years, we've noticed that trend where one of those zip codes seems to do a better job of availing itself of aid than the other.
it's the ones with the stronger neighborhood association.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
And then the lowest income zip code has almost no utilization at all.
Yeah.
Even lower than like some strikingly more wealthy areas.
Yeah.
Or
And no neighborhood association there.
exactly.
It's also a little bit deceiving because 24017 also have one of the highest number of residential customers. So naturally, more customers will get
Fair,
assistance
that's true,
because
that's true.
there's more
It's not a
customers to
percentage,
get.
that's right.
Yes.
Good point.
So that's how we built all that into one chart. We have to consider all that.
Yeah.
One other way that we try to provide assistance to our customers is to give ample notification when they fall behind on the utility bills before we do a disconnection for non-payment. We will focus on zip code 24017. That's where we target today, because that was the zip code where we have the highest percentage of customers disconnected. And as you can see here, we also provided the most notification to customers in that zip code. The dark green is our first notification. That's the delinquent notice that's sent in the mail. And in 2025, we mailed over 18,770 delinquent notices to customers in the zip code. In just that zip code. And 7,500, more than 7,500 paid when they received that delinquent notice. So a 40% success rate. On our first outbound call, we called 11,254 customers in that zip code. And almost 5,000 of them paid when they got that delinquent call from us. That was a 44% success rate. The remaining 6,260 received that second outbound call. And that call goes out just 3 days before they get disconnected. And over 5,100 of those customers paid, 83%. When they get that second outbound call, it's time to pay. So the blue line represents the percentage of the customers who fall into this delinquency notification process that actually did get disconnected after all those notifications. So in 24017, 8.61% were disconnected. But we had a success rate of over 91% with the notifications.
What's the timeline between when they are delinquent versus when they come?
They get cut off when they are 30 days past the due date. That's by law.
So you get,
Code.
so it's we allow 21 days to pay and then you have another 30 days. And in actuality, I know when Leon's tracked it, it's, you know, that would be 51 days. It's actually running about 56 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
56 days.
Yeah.
The actual time.
Yeah.
Here we're looking at the total number of disconnects compared to our number of customers between FY15 and FY25. In that total number of disconnects, we look at all of our customer classes, so residential, commercial, and industrial. And if a customer was disconnected more than one time, that is also counted in this number of disconnects. So you can see we have a slight increase between FY24 to FY25. But again, you've got to bring this back to a percentage because of the change in the number of customers you have. And if we do that, the percentage of disconnects in 2025 is similar to what we have back in FY17 and FY18. You can see with the start of the Authority Cares program, the positive impact it had on our disconnects that continued on into FY19. And then COVID happened and we had the moratorium of the disconnects. But also during that time, between FY21 and FY24, we had additional federal funding to help our customers with paying their utility bills. The last of that ended early in FY24 when the LIWAP program ended.
I will just, there is still a lot of effort on the federal level among the national organizations that represent water and wastewater utilities to get a permanent LIWAP program in. It continues to build sponsors, but it is just not one that has the administration's attention, I guess is the best way to put that. So it's kind of languishing a little bit, but you know, I participate in a legislative call every month with the American Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies, and they are always happy that they take on another patron or two every month. If we get enough, I guess we'll be able to establish this, but this would be similar to the heat share program that's in federal law now. Like Leon said, they ran this for a couple of years during COVID. It was very successful. We just add to our Authority Cares program, but there's just not enough votes yet to make it a permanent program. So.
So FY25 was the first time that we only relied on the Authority Cares program. So customers in the last 5 years, actually.
What's funny is the General Accounting Office has documented this was money well spent, and I think everyone agrees that there's a need, but they just can't seem to get it across the finish line. So.
Now, we mentioned before that our percentage of cost for water and sewer is well below the EPA's benchmark or the threshold of 3.2%. So these disconnects must be driven by other factors, so, the cost of living and the affordable housing in the Roanoke Valley. Those are things that impact our customers.
With gas prices the way they're
Gas
going,
prices.
we anticipate some more.
Yeah, we do see seasonal trends too. Leon's team, you know, they're higher around the holidays. Disconnects are. And, so higher in the summer.
Mhm.
Have to pick what they pay.
Now we'll continue on to our revenues. So this takes a look at our total budgeted connections for water and sewer. On the water side, we have 69,809 connections. And that is 448 above the current budget. And in sewer, we're at 63,112 connections, and that's 237 above our budget.
Does this include the number, I know there's a lot of large multifamily housing projects that are coming on board. Do these numbers include that? I mean, I don't know if they, when they pay the availability fee, does it fall into that number? Or when we start billing?
Yeah, these are billing.
Okay, so maybe these will be increased even further.
I will say though that the 69,000 is, that number's what Liana bills every month is typically less because there'll be, people moving in and out of locations or, you know, something's vacant, not been rented, things like that.
We
So,
make an equivalent for large users in those numbers, or is that?
no, this is actual.
Actual numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have an equivalent? Kind of equivalent is what?
Let's see, we, you know, we think we serve roughly 180,000 people. But if you looked at, you know, like our large users and tried to work that out, you know, we'd be well closer to like 275, I think 300. So we have a good mix. I mean, roughly 55% of our sales is residential and 45 is commercial industrial. So that's a pretty good mix. You know.
Using equivalent residential connections.
Right.
Overall, all the customers.
We typically, for those calculations, use 2.25 people per connection as a way of trying to do that.
These are actual connections. not-
These are actual connections. Yeah.
So the rates that we are proposing will go into effect October of 26. So all of our jurisdictions are on the same rates. In the proposed budget, we will not be making any changes to the base rate. We will be making a slight change to the tier 1 rate. So for our water tier customer, the tier rate will increase from $3.35 to $3.50 per 1,000 gallons. And for our sewer customer, tier 1 rate will increase from $4.20 to $4.50 per 1,000 gallons. So an average residential usage is approximately 3,800. So an estimated bill for an average residential customer using 4,000 gallons, it would be a 60-cent increase to the volume. So their water residential bill will increase from 31.45 to 32.05, and that's 1.9%. On the sewer side, we're proposing an increase of $1.20 for a customer using 4,000 gallons. And that would be an increase with their bill from 42.70 to 43.90 for 2.8%. And a combined bill, the increase would be $1.80 from 74.15 to 75.95 or 2.4%.
So Will, can you go back one slide?
Yes, sir.
So, this kind of gets back to the question about the Reptella study that y'all, if you remember when we did that presentation, they had looked at us for us a number of different things. And one of the big things that stood out is, you know, last year we did a robust increase on our commercial industrial customers. And they had looked at kind of the funding issues, like where our revenues were coming relative to residential, commercial, and industrial. And they had kind of concluded that our commercial industrial customers were assuming more of our expenses than our residential customers. So we feel like we maybe tilted the pendulum a little too far in that direction. So the intent here is kind of just bring it back a little bit without necessarily causing a significant increase for our residential customers. So again, this is all just tier 1. Commercial industrial will also pay that, you know, but they move through that pretty quickly and get into the 2 higher tiers. But you know, the study was useful from the standpoint that it said our methodology is good, we're doing everything well, but we probably did push everything a little too farther toward industrial and commercial. So we're looking at just a fairly flat rate increase this year with just a little adjustment on the residential side, so. Go ahead. Will.
Next.
Yeah, well,
So we, on the other fees, we are not proposing any ability and connection fees. We are proposing a 50-cent increase to the tier rate for irrigation. And then for septic disposal, rates, we will be proposing a 3% increase. So if you're in our jurisdiction, it's an increase of $1.70 for 1,000 or 3%. And then if you're out of jurisdiction, it would be $2.30 per $1,000.
and you recall, we started having a problem last year with people showing up in our area because our rates were too low. Scott tells me we've kind of solved that problem, curbed it.
Yeah.
Good.
Where are they going, do you know?
It, more than likely, my thought is that some of the jurisdictions that said they would not accept are likely doing very limited, not advertised acceptance to some of their local haulers. Which is the way it should
The
be.
way you should be.
Right.
And maybe more illegal.
Yeah.
So as we increase the septic disposal fees, we also are increasing the grease truck waste. And that is also by 3%. So within jurisdiction, it's an increase of $2.30 per 1,000. And then if you're out of jurisdiction, it's $3.50 per 1,000 pounds.
So I do want to, I'm sorry.
No,
yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I did want to have a discussion a little bit on, again, the Raftellus report had recommended a tier 4 rate, which would again apply to our very large user category, which right now we're projecting just to have one. And they came up with a couple of ideas. One would be just to, and we're calling it our tier 4 rate because right now our water rates, we have tier 1, 2, and 3. And again, it's an inclining block. So as you move up those, our larger users pay more per gallon than our residential customers do. But they were recommending that we look at a 4th tier rate, and that could be in a couple different forms. That might be just a higher per gallon charge. That might be in the form of a narrative kind of rate where we look at maybe a take or pay kind of concept. So again, with the Google, to use Google as an example, on the day one solution, they're asking for 2 million gallons a day. Again, we don't think they'll use 2 million gallons a day, but they will be paying us to put infrastructure in place to provide 2 million gallons a day. So one thing we could do is look at a narrative rate that says you will pay us the equivalent of 2 million gallons a day, whether you use it or not, kind of a take or pay concept. We could, again, set a tier such that it would only trigger, again, these higher users like data centers, where they would pay a rate higher than everybody else. That's another possibility. There's a third one there, Will, I'm forgetting.
A special negotiated contract.
Or just do a contract negotiated rate and allow the language to do that. Right now, our contract with them says that they would pay the same rate schedule as any other customer. However, they are aware that we would like to modify our rate schedule to take into account their usage.
So I think we all want them to use as little water as possible or to find other ways to source water, right? So I do think we need to be careful not to disincentivize that and just say, we're going to pay for 2 million, we might as well use every drop of it we can.
Yeah.
So I would not be in favor of that.
Reminds me in putting in banking terms, for our large customers that have large lines of credits, we have you pay your normal interest rate on what you use, but then what we have allocated for you, you'll pay a smaller rate, but it's an unused fee for what we're allocating to stay for you, and we're holding that capital. And so if we can maybe formulate something like that, then that can be a incentive for them to, okay, we can use less water and say, but still, we can still get something for allocating that and holding that reserve for them.
I think one thing, the larger the facilities, the more expensive they are to operate. So if we could base something maybe on the larger, because we've got to operate a larger system, they may be will contribute more from that way on the rates. And I wasn't familiar with that from banking, but I like that idea because I'm gonna raise something similar, which is almost like an annual availability fee for this large capacity that we know will be infrequently used. And then like Don said, but if you have a more traditional commercial rate underneath of that, that allows cost to be recovered, but at the same time does not encourage use, right? Because you still pay less as you use less. So I kind of like that. I think it's my understanding, I'm not an expert in this either, but I think they have similar kind of constraints on the power side of this as well, where to some extent you're paying both for utilization, but also for availability for certain quantities, theoretical quantities of electricity. So I like something that kind of covers both of those, while, as John said, just, if you're gonna pay for it all anyway, you'll just use it, but, to me, it kind of seems to balance, the other ratepayers, and then also has the desired outcome you're looking for.
Okay. No, it's a good idea. Thank you.
Can I go back to the grease trap waste rates real quick? These are affected by the restaurants, right? And there's a lot of increasing costs, staff shortages. How much money are we actually talking about by increasing it by 3% within our jurisdiction? Because we're not talking about a lot for the water authority. It'd be nice to keep that as flat as possible if we could financially.
With the within rate, yeah, we can do that.
Just for the grease.
There's a lot of pressure on these restaurants, so.
It's a good point.
Or create a differential of 1% or something.
Yeah, just from now.
You're acknowledging that.
1%, yeah.
Yeah.
I think 0% gets everybody kind of,
Used to it, yeah.
yeah, and.
Yeah, what 1%?
Yeah, I like that.
Total septic tank fees are running, we budget 765,000, but that's total, grease and septage, and grease is a much smaller percentage of septage. So yeah, I think that's doable without causing a problem.
Mike, I just wanted to point something out. So we went back and talked about the cost summary. The two numbers were I think 2% on water and 6% on sewer or something like that. You had some transfers between the two. If you actually look at total costs between the two, it's going up about 6%. And so I just want to point out, none of the percentages you've just reviewed about rates gets anywhere close to that.
You're saying the expenses are higher than the rate numbers we're doing. And that's true, but it's the percent of revenues versus our expenses. So our revenues are much higher than our expenses. So it's a 6% expense rate, but it doesn't necessarily translate to needing 6% of revenue. That's.
No, I think your question was different.
So basically the amount that we have to put towards future reinvestment into the system is going to decrease next year versus this year, as a percentage of the needs of the organization to fund those future investments. Because irregardless of whether the number's bigger or smaller, it's a percentage. So your percentage of revenues, it's like taxes or your take home pay. If your expenses go up 4% and your income goes up 2%, something eventually has to.
Agreed. So we'll go to the second to last slide. I think that'll help. But I think you're right. I mean, sorry, Tammy, we were skipping, but to your point, our expense number there, is roughly 30 million there for both funds. This year we're at what's it?
60 total expenses.
Yeah, total expenses is 60. But I'm thinking this year's number, the total expenses is only. So I'm trying to see, like, to Don's point, are we?
Which page I was looking at?
Are we hurting ourselves here?
Well, not sir. I just want to point it out.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually, if this were to take place every year, you're.
Where did that go?
I remember I asked the question earlier. What was you said it was the transfer?
Yeah, I'm
13 maybe? Yes, the total expenses, Mike, for budget, are you talking about the budget or actual?
Budget 26 to 27.
Budget for total expenses were 28.3 and 28.7.
Yeah, right.
And we're going up to 30, yeah,
But
6%.
if you have to take out the 700,000, that's not a recurring expense.
Sure.
Your expenses look lower than they really are because.
Those expenses also include, non-operating expenses as well, but.
Right.
But it's point well taken. We'll take a look at it.
Okay. So the overall, if you take out the 693,558, which may not be the perfect number, but most of that's due to the non-recurring expense for the filters, right? If you take that out of the equation, total expenses between the two water and sewer is going up 4.8%.
Back to the grease, wonder if there's any biodiesel producers around that we could have utilized some of the grease and maybe get some credit back with some fuel.
There used to be one down in,
There used to be one right down here in Martinsville.
yeah, I would say, in Henry County there before you.
It closed down. There's a company, called Greaseville. And so Hampton Road Sanitation District did a project with them where they accept the grease and produce bunker fuel. And so we held a joint meeting with all the jurisdictions, and the question is, can we collectively work together to get a central location in Southwest Virginia to get that type of operation up and going? We wanted to visit HRSD. They had some problems with wait time on some electrical switch gear getting in operation. So it's only been in operation this last year, but we are planning a staff visit to take a look at that facility.
So that's a positive. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the price of what diesel appears to be going. And from what I hear on the news, I don't think it's gonna be any better than 10%.
Right.
So when your cruise ship smells like French fries, you'll know that. That was your grease.
So Don,
There's not much use for bunker in this area, but that can be the other.
Will pulled the last year's numbers for us. So total revenue last year was 105, and we're showing 108. Expenses were 59.5, and we're showing 60.1, so we're up $1 million.
Yeah.
And available for capital, we're showing 48 this year, and last year was 45. And I think the difference there is because we're having some debt service drop off, so that's helping a little bit.
Yeah, I also want to point out that the budget assumes that the market is going to continue to perform at the level.
Well, yeah.
I think that's $1 million. I think that's aggressive.
Yeah,
By me.
it's not gonna be flat. It's definitely not gonna be flat. You might wanna look at that term.
Yeah, we're struggling with whether interest rates were actually going to go down or actually going up. So, but some of y'all are closer to that than I am, so maybe, again, some advice there would be good.
The current contract says. But you told them what the under to.
I think it's slide 29. Slide 29. Sorry, it's the monthly bill comparison to the median household income. Yeah. So this slide is the monthly bill, the proposed monthly bill compared to the median household income. Median household income reflected in this chart is the 2024. It's 2024 dollars, but it's a range of the median household income from 2024. So you can see the water monthly bill is going to 3205, and then the median household percentages for the water bill. Sewer is 4390. The sewer bill median household income. Just for the city of Roanoke, combined bill is 1.65%. Roanoke County, 1.39%. Franklin County, 1.32%. Wichita County, 1.12%. And Town of Benton, 1.39%.
Yeah, we break out the town there just so you guys can see the value for the town it should be blended into Roanoke County, but.
What year and where are the income numbers coming from?
Census.
Yeah. Small area estimates from the census group, and again, they're 2024 data. So we're about 1 year behind here.
And we're not all in Franklin County. I think we're more in the higher income bracket in Franklin County.
It depends, we have down by the lake, but then we also again have like Fairham and Boonesboro.
We did
So,
pick up a
yeah,
couple
yeah,
that
yeah,
were
so,
now balancing it out.
but, you can kind of see there, you know, Botetourt traditionally has had the highest median household income in the, area, but, recently Roanoke County eclipsed that, so well done, Richard.
Yeah, that's a couple years old data.
Yeah, and actually this, I would say the city of Roanoke, numbers actually, those numbers are significantly higher than they were like 4 years ago. Because
Yeah.
for many years, the city was in the 40s, so those
Yeah.
numbers have really gone up quite a bit. So I take that just to be, you know, the investments in economic development that have been occurring in the city have really helped with that.
The other thing I think that's just gonna be an issue going forward, when you look at just raw income numbers, there's plenty of people who have wealth that have limited income as they get older, right?
Sure.
And so I've always wondered how that's determined. So you can be a retiree outright in your home. You know, I don't know how investment income is counted, right? So as a growing percentage of our population is no longer in their quote unquote prime working years, that's gonna distort some of this picture, especially, you know, that's gonna vary by jurisdiction, but that's something I've wondered how that's determined. You know, and I would even think of somewhere like Smith Mountain Lake, let's say, where you have a lot of folks living around the lake, many of them are retired. But many of them have considerable wealth, but they may have.
They may be, high wealth, but low income.
Correct,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So they're often connected, but not always.
You're right.
But especially among folks as they retire.
Exactly.
It also might be their second home too.
Correct, yeah.
Things fall into it.
Yeah.
So these, you know, do get adjusted. The Weldon Cooper Center does a good job of keeping these adjusted
Yeah.
annually. I know a lot of you guys know those numbers. I think what's, again, been pretty encouraging for the region is, you know, since 2020, the rate of growth for median household income has accelerated quite a bit in the Roanoke Valley. You know, during the decade 2010 to 2020, they would go up every year, but they were kind of flat. You know, they were just kind of chunking up a little bit, you know, really just not, that slope of that curve has changed since 2020. So again, I think hats off to the local government folks and the economic developers. They've been bringing in new jobs in the area that just pay well, you know.
That's right.
The research center, you know, Brilliant's partnership with Virginia Tech, that's just blossomed and provides a lot of high-paying jobs to the region. So.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say with those figures that can also be deceptive is, well, long going far away, I guess Mr. Kluge was one of the wealthiest people in Virginia. You had sort of two different numbers for Albemarle County. With or without, right? Yeah, because I think he was worth a couple $1 billion back then. That was a huge amount of money. So as we do have, I think, a growing number of very high wage people in the valley, that can distort this in such a way that masks what, you know, a lot of customers see, right? So that's just something that we'll always have to think about when we look at these aggregated numbers, because, you know, if you're sort of at the minimum wage end of the economy, the median household income helps you zero, right? Because that's not you. And I do think there's a, you know, growing kind of concentration of wealth at the top, which makes these figures less meaningful when when things are maybe a little bit more homogeneous with incomes. So.
Yeah, and I can echo that. I've lived that, particularly in Loudon, because the median household income in Loudon is like 155. But make no mistake, you know, we have pockets of poverty.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I haven't looked at the data in a while, but the HHS used to publish data based on poverty levels, but you couldn't get it to zip code. But there are ways for us to look at, like, just at the locality level and kind of say, like, if you're in the, you know, bottom quartile, the bottom 25%, what is your income? And we could run that number and see how your bill compares to that.
Yeah, I think that's a really, if you did it by that, you'd give you a much different picture, I think.
So, well, it would definitely be the people that are at the most risk, right?
Yeah.
So the next slide is monthly water rates. We used to get this information from TRC. They stopped doing it in 2024, I believe. So yesterday I spent most of my time going through the websites to calculate these rates. As you can see, our current rate is 31.45. Our proposed rate is 32.05. So we're in the middle, I guess you would say, of local jurisdictions around us or county cities. On the sewer side, front rate is 42.70 and the proposed is 43.90. And combined rates currently for us are 74.15 and we're going to 75.95. And again, these were just the rates that were published. A lot of them did not provide when those rates went into effect. So I'm not sure the physical year, calendar year, that just gives an idea of where we stand compared to the others around us.
You can still see there's a few localities that still do the inside-outside kind of thing. Blacksburg and Lexington still do that, where they serve out into outside their corporate jurisdictions and charge a different rate there. That's becoming really uncommon, but there are still a few that do that. Rocky Mount still does that as well.
So next we'll go into summary of our revenues. So this is the summary of the revenues on the water side. So you can see our retail sales will increase 5%. Total operating income will increase 1%. And then non-operating income will decrease 23% for a total water income of 1% increase or $491,600. On the non-operating income, the 1.8 million, really is the settlements and forms that we will not be seeing in 2017. Any questions on any of those other?
Remind me what that other income was?
Let's come on.
What was it you said, upper Comores? Oh,
Yeah, associated with the PFAS settlement.
On the sewer side, retail sales will increase 4%. Total operating will decrease 3%. And for the bulk sales, City of Salem, their calculated rate for fiscal year 27 actually decreased 5%. So that's the reason for that decrease. And then total non-operating income on the sewer side will decrease 3%. And then total sewer income will increase 3%, approximately 1.5.
The contributed capital, you said that this year's had some contributed capital from some ARPA funds, but also from Helio.
That they weren't originally approved in the budget.
Yeah, they weren't in the budget for this year.
But aren't we getting some more payments from them?
We've got the one payment to handle the engineering studies, but at this point, we don't have anything else scheduled from them. Now, we do have some other payments scheduled from Bobcat County, but they probably are not going to hit the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, so we don't expect anything from them? Okay, thank you.
And then most of the contributed capital is localities paying us back for that service. So taking a look at a summary for 27 budget, revenues on the water side are 54.3 million, on the sewer side 54.3 million. Expenses on the water front are a little over 30 million and 30.4 million on sewer. So total revenues is approximately 108. Total expenses of 60.54 million, and total available for debt and capital affordable 1.8 million, which will lead us right into our next board meeting, which we will be talking about debt and our capital plan.
I'll just preview and say we have a robust capital, plan for you for the next 5 years, so. um, I think Tesha especially has done a good job of, trying to maximize, both current year revenues and debt.
So I guess I'll just say, it's really the 3% merit increase, it's the increase to health and dental benefits, new positions. But other than that, I don't think there were a lot of standout expenses that really increased. Software went up a little bit, chemicals went up a little bit, but again, as Mr. Powell mentioned, we're in times where.
Uncertain times.
Questionable period of time, yeah.
So I guess we're looking for direction. Should we, adjust our expenses? Do we adjust our revenues? What are your thoughts?
I would suggest adjusting the investment
Yes. that's
income
Down,
assumptions.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, if it goes the other direction for us, but that's budget for the.
Less rosy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Contingency fund somewhere.
Okay.
And I mean, think I've said this before, so this won't be a shocker to folks. I mean, I think that it is important to think about covering inflation with revenue. We don't need to make more. We're not trying to make more. We're trying to keep up with the cost of inflation of putting pipe in the ground and repairs and salaries and those kinds of things. And the other thing is, if you go from a average 2% increase and then next year you need a 4% to get back, it seems like a big leap. If your kind of approach is consistent every year, you increase your revenues to cover your expenses, so that you have the funds available to reinvest in infrastructure and growth as you need it. That's just what's expected every year.
I'm curious about how you project the growth. And maybe you talked about this a little bit, like, 5% in revenue, but sorry. go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's just the tier increase. So that's really what we're seeing there.
So is there any projection of the number of households in the whole area?
So, based on budget to budget, there is an increase on the water side of customer accounts.
400 and something, is that what you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, it wasn't many.
It wasn't many, yeah.
And then the same for sewer.
And that's just based on past growth?
Experience, yeah. If you take out, the town of Benton expansion or, adding, like Fairman, Boots Mill, generally just, residential growth in the area, because it's hard to predict commercial growth, but residential growth in the area is going up about 400 water connections a year. Now, again, if we acquire systems, that really helps quite a bit, so.
It's a little less on the sewer side, I would say.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Great presentation and great comments and questions. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks to staff. Good stuff. Mike, you wanted to go into closed session? Is that
I
correct?
did, if we have a little bit of time, so it will be brief.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I move
Yeah.
the Board of the Western Virginia Water Authority convene a closed meeting. Number one, pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1, for the purpose of discussion or consideration of assignment, appointment, performance, and or resignation of the executive director and other senior executive staff. Pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A7, for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff pertaining to actual litigation concerning the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and the Virginia Court of Appeals, where consultation and briefing and open meeting would adversely affect the authority's negotiating or litigating posture. Number three, Virginia Code 2.2-3711A8 this time, for the purpose of consultation with the authority's legal counsel regarding specific legal matters, namely the foregoing litigation requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, and four, pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-371189 for purpose of discussing the award of a public relations contract involving the expenditure of public funds and discussion of terms or scope of such contract, for discussion in an open session that adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body.
And I may have made a typo in my motion. That should be 829, not 89.
I'll second that. Sorry, that was my reading error, 29. I apologize.